Day 1. The Decision. Elon Musk, the visionary entrepreneur known for his ambitious ventures in space, electric cars, and AI, stood in front of his office looking at the city streets stretching before him. The idea had been on his mind for weeks, growing more intense with every passing day. It wasn't a typical problem he would try to solve with his usual resources. No, this was something deeply personal. Elon Musk was about to live as a homeless person for 30 days. His decision was driven by a simple desire to understand something he had always read about, something he had heard countless stories about, but never experienced himself: homelessness. What was it like to live without security, without a roof over your head, without the comforts of wealth and success? How did it feel to live in a world where survival itself became a daily battle? The first step was clear. Elon needed to disappear. He couldn't just step out in public as himself, as the billionaire entrepreneur everyone knew. He needed to blend in, to live among the invisible people, the ones society often overlooked. He stripped away his identity, leaving behind his wealth, his companies, his gadgets, and his power. Elon Musk was no longer a CEO. He was just another man trying to survive in a harsh, unforgiving world. Day 2. Into the streets. Elon took his first step onto the cold, unforgiving streets of a large city, feeling a stark contrast between his world and the one he was about to enter. The hustle and bustle of the urban landscape overwhelmed him. People walked past without even acknowledging his presence. The sense of isolation set in quickly. His new world felt strange, alien, and distant. He was no longer the man who made headlines or owned electric cars that were changing the future. No, he was now a face in the crowd, just one of the many who walked the streets with nothing but the clothes on their back. His first goal was food. He walked for hours, searching for a meal. He found himself outside a fast food restaurant and tried to ask for help. "Excuse me, could you spare a meal? I haven't eaten all day." The person behind the counter glanced at him for a brief moment before shaking their head. "Sorry, we can't give away food." He walked away, feeling a mixture of embarrassment and helplessness. The idea of asking for help was more difficult than he had anticipated. Elon Musk, a man who had commanded rockets to the stars, was now forced to ask strangers for food. He spent the rest of the day searching for shelter. The city's shelters were full, overcrowded with people just like him, people trying to survive another day. He eventually found a park bench and laid down, staring up at the stars, feeling a strange sense of vulnerability. He realized just how different the world was from the one he had been living in. No amount of wealth or influence could change the reality of the streets. Day 3 to 5. The struggle begins. By day 3, Elon was beginning to understand the true struggle of homelessness. It wasn't just about surviving, it was about being invisible. People walked by him every day, too busy with their own lives to even glance his way. He had become a ghost in the city, a figure that blended into the background. Finding food remained a constant challenge. He resorted to begging, asking strangers for spare change, hoping that someone would take pity on him. But most ignored him, while others looked at him with disdain. It became painfully clear that the homeless were often viewed as less than human, as if they were a nuisance to society. He spent the nights on benches, in shelters, and in alleyways. Each place was more uncomfortable than the last. The physical toll of living on the streets began to wear him down. His body ached from sleeping on hard surfaces, and he constantly felt cold, no matter how many layers he wore. Yet, it was the emotional toll that was beginning to hurt the most. The loneliness was overwhelming. He hadn't realized how deeply isolation could affect someone. There were moments when he would simply sit in silence, surrounded by the noise of the city, yet feeling completely alone. No one spoke to him. No one acknowledged his existence. It was as if he had vanished from the world. Day 6 out of 10. Meeting others. As the days passed, Elon began to meet others who had also found themselves on the streets. Some were older, some younger, but all had a story to tell. They were people who had fallen through the cracks of society, left to fend for themselves in a world that seemed indifferent to their suffering. One woman, Karen, had been living on the streets for over a decade. She told Elon that she had once had a family, a home, and a job, but a series of unfortunate events had left her homeless. A divorce, followed by the loss of her job, had pushed her to the streets. She had been trying to find work ever since, but it was always a struggle. Karen spoke of the hardships she faced daily, how hard it was to get a job without an address, how hard it was to keep a sense of dignity when society treated you like you didn't matter. She spoke of the fear that came with being homeless, the fear of being attacked, the fear of being judged, the fear of losing yourself in a system that didn't care. Ben, a young man in his 20s, had a similar story. He had grown up in a poor neighborhood and had been trying to make a better life for himself. But after his mother fell ill and he lost his job, he ended up on the streets. His dreams of starting a business had been shattered by his circumstances. Like many others, he felt trapped in a system that didn't provide the support he needed to escape. Elon listened intently to their stories. He had spent years thinking about how to solve problems on a grand scale, but this was different. The solutions weren't about technology or innovation. They were about human beings, about dignity, about creating opportunities for those who had been forgotten. Day 11-15. The Breaking Point. As the days dragged on, Elon began to reach his breaking point. The physical exhaustion from lack of sleep and food was taking its toll. His mind, which was used to solving complex problems and making billion-dollar decisions, now struggled to focus on simple tasks like finding a safe place to sleep. The isolation grew worse. He found himself feeling increasingly disconnected from the world around him. Even when he interacted with others, it felt like a distant, mechanical exchange. He began to wonder if he would ever escape the cycle of poverty and homelessness that seemed so inescapable for so many people. One night, as he lay in a shelter, a man approached him. The man was older, perhaps in his late 50s, and had a rough appearance. His face was weathered, and his eyes carried a deep sadness. The man spoke softly, asking Elon if he was okay. "Just tired," Elon replied, trying to mask the frustration in his voice. The man nodded. "You get used to it, but don't lose hope. The streets will break you if you let them." Those words stuck with Elon. He realized that the real danger of homelessness wasn't just the physical struggle. It was the mental and emotional toll it took. People on the streets didn't just need food and shelter, they needed hope. Day 16-20. The Search for Meaning. By the middle of the experiment, Elon's thoughts began to shift. He had spent so much time thinking about survival, about how to get food, how to stay safe, how to make it through another day, that he had forgotten to think about why he was doing this in the first place. What was the point of it all? What did he hope to learn from this experience? As he sat in a park one afternoon, he watched people walk by, going about their lives, unaware of the struggles of those who lived on the streets. He realized that most people had no idea what it was like to live in constant fear, to live without a sense of security, to live without a home. The world was divided into two realities, one for those who had everything and another for those who had nothing. But Elon also realized something else. There were moments of humanity amidst the chaos. A passerby had once given him a few dollars. A volunteer at a shelter had offered him a warm meal. These small acts of kindness had made a difference. It wasn't much, but it was enough to remind him that people cared, that there was hope. Day 21-25. The Shift in Perspective. By this point, Elon had a new perspective on homelessness. He began to see it not just as an issue of poverty, but as a systemic problem that needed to be addressed. He thought about his own experiences with technology and innovation, and wondered how those could be applied to solve the issue of homelessness. He began brainstorming ideas. Could technology be used to create affordable, modular housing? Could AI be used to connect people with jobs and resources? Could the systems that existed for the homeless be restructured to make them more efficient and effective? Elon knew that homelessness was a complex issue that couldn't be solved with a single solution, but he also knew that innovation could make a difference. And if anyone could make that difference, it was him. Day 26-30. The end of the experiment. As the final days of the experiment approached, Elon found himself feeling both relieved and conflicted. The physical strain was exhausting, and the emotional toll had been profound, but the experience had given him a new sense of purpose. On the last day, he returned to his home, a place of comfort and luxury that now felt foreign to him. The streets had changed him. They had given him a deeper understanding of the struggles of the homeless and a renewed sense of responsibility to use his resources and influence to help make a change. He didn't just want to solve the problem of homelessness, he wanted to change the system that allowed it to exist in the first place.